Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Monday Night Magic with your favorite Epigenetic Geeks, my amazing co-host, Ken Close, Epigeneer, and myself, Lori Falk. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening as we discuss a very romantic topic, the love affair and romantic dance between bacteria and neurotransmitters. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you, people?
Oh,
Well,
love
it's a
it.
good topic. It really, really, really is. And there's something, because I have had over the years dealt with mental health issues, I was very aware of some of this and also aware of the fact that there were a number of wellness companies out there trying to create supplements to help that gut microbiome balance the neurotransmitters in the brain. So we're going to take a deep dive into that. But because Ken has spent so much time creating this for us, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. I'll interject and ask questions as need be. But my dear, the floor is yours.
I love it. I love it. Well, as you heard, you might not have heard that coming or felt or seen that coming. Is this romantic love affair between a components like the gut? Really? I mean, even that word to me, by the way, somebody says gut, it's like that's not one of my fun words. It's just one of those things. It's just not a fun word in my world, because it's like, okay, how many of you guys have ever had an upset stomach, right? Or you've ever thrown up for some reason, right? It's like it doesn't feel good. And so this is one of those things that we talk about the gut, and it tends to build some kind of um, internal dialogue. But we have had such a disconnect within within our health and this entire non-human side of us, that is a plethora of bacteria, right? That lives within these bodies. It's not human, folks, and yet we don't. I mean, we don't have a relationship with it. I'll put it that way. Okay. And so what I want to try to talk about tonight is a relationship that we really need to cultivate, and find love for again. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll just dive right into it. Unless, did you want to share your screen or should I? Should I do it?
You
Okay.
go.
I got it. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll just kind of dive into this presentation and have a lot of fun with it. Here we go. All right. So let's get this guy rolling. Okay. So what are we talking about here? This relationship. Can you guys all see my screen?
Looks good.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So this relationship that really guides our health is this intricate communications structure that we take for granted. I mean, we really do take this for granted, I think, unless you guys, of course, study gut biome, study neurotransmitters, study autonomic nervous systems, those kind of things, because this is a system that is entangled in everything and every part of these bodies. And it should be a love affair between this non-human part of us, the bacterial sense of us, and the neurotransmitters that allow the function of our entire nervous system. Right? We don't think about it in that depth, and we should. So we're going to kind of go over this a little bit. This dance I talk about. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to kind of discover a little bit around the connection between these trillions of bacteria within this body, this gut, over 500 different species. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. Aren't we part of the human species? Yes, but there's another ecological system within us that is not human. And it balances everything within us. So there is a very distinct relationship here. The gut bacteria, these trillions of bacteria in our gut, and the neurotransmitters that govern our brain function. And honestly, all of the signaling processes within our body. There's, this relationship between our heart and the physical well-being. Again, the influences of these very critical neurotransmitters. You guys have all probably heard of serotonin, dopamine, right? You've heard of these. Well, guess what creates these, right? It's not it's not what you eat, but what is building, or I should say, breaking down what you eat, right? This entire ecological system. So, by also understanding this dance is a very harmonious, romantic, seamless interface between this microbiome and, of course, the neurotransmitters. Okay. So I'm going to try to move this little, I've got, there. Okay. So how many of you guys, you can put in the chat, you can raise your hand when I see some of you guys on the camera are familiar with the gut biome, right? You may have heard of it, but what is it? And so this is a kind of an interesting thing that we need to unpack is what exactly is this? And again, it's trillions of microorganisms and trillions. Now think about this. I'm not talking about millions or thousands. I'm talking about trillions. There's so many. It's about, like I said, about 500 different species, and they're living within this digestive tract. And these bacteria, they really play a super huge critical role in digesting your food. And when I say digestive tract, what is that? Well, it starts on the other side of your lips, okay, and goes all the way down through the other side of the elimination portal. I'll put it that way. All right. It's an entire system that is, if we look at it as like a conveyor belt, and every piece of it has a job, right? And if any one of those pieces like breaks down, or let's say that the one operating that part of the conveyor belt says, I quit, I'm out of here, right? Everything after that like gets robbed, and everything before that gets backed up. So it's important that this system actually functions. Now, by the way, folks, if you find typos, I'm sorry. We'll fix them later. It's one of these things of building this model. I love PowerPoints, but I'm not an expert at them, right? But the content is my jam. So at least if we got typos, sorry about that.
Hey, plus it's hot off the press and you didn't even let me proof it. So what can we say?
I know, right? I didn't. It was like I was trying to get this over to you, and it's just always a lot of fun in getting this stuff done. But feel free to take screenshots, because what I want to, first of all, give an understanding of how it works, but then also there's some tips how to incorporate, different types of foods and benefits to kind of improve that whole pathway. So let's look at the purpose. Okay, so the gut biome is essentially where a plethora of neurotransmitters are made. Okay, that's where it's made. Have you guys ever heard, or maybe you've been involved and said, like, I have a gut feeling, right? And this understanding around the gut, this is not something to take lightly, because when you say I have a gut feeling, your emotions, your feelings, a lot about your mood is built there. It's literally built right in the gut. So when that whole microbiome system, it's a very delicate system, but it has a much bigger job than just digesting your food, because it does not only digest food, but it also protects you from basically bacteria. It's like bacteria that are good bacteria, and they can identify bad bacteria. right? They are their own little ecosystem, and they're very brilliant. So anyway, understanding that a lot of things are produced from that area or from this system, and the mother lode of your emotional well-being is made right there in your gut. So, let's think about it for a second. If you're struggling with emotions, right? And whenever I'm working with folks from the coaching model or from just a training model within business, I ask them a question. And the answer to this question helps us decide which way we navigate and begin with. And the question is this: do you struggle more with the thoughts in your brain and in the mind, or with the feelings and the emotions within the body? And I asked them this question, and you guys can silently write it down for yourselves, because we have one or more so than the other. I guarantee you there's one that beats out the other just a little bit. And if the answer is something around, it's these emotions in my body, anxiety and depression and frustration, anger, like overreaction, that kind of thing, then I say, okay, well, we need to start with understanding this body, and we need to start with taking a look at this entire microbiome, because there could be an imbalance, and almost 100% of the time there is. All right, almost 100% of the time. Now, of course, if the answer is the other one, the mind, then we go into a reference point around what it's for. It's almost, the mind is almost a secondary mechanism to this microbiome, that it's its own standalone system. So we've got these two parallel systems that are kind of standing side by side, and they're very intricately woven. This is why I said this is a romantic dance, right? It's a very romantic dance. Okay. So let's see here. Next. All right. Within this dance, whoops, did I go the wrong way?
I think so.
I did.
We'll forgive you.
What's going on here? I'm gonna have to maybe refresh my screen or something, because huh.
So while you're figuring that out, do you know there's actually a new term that they call all of this? Psychobiotics. The term psychobiotics doesn't refer to a specific type of probiotic. Rather, it's used by experts when probiotics are being studied or used to improve mental health. So they're really making a huge connection between mental health and probiotics.
Yeah, that's the word psycho or
Psycho,
cycle.
exactly. Oops, that's bad joke, but you guys know.
Yes. So let's see if we can understand a little bit of the role between these components that we're talking about here. So first of all, your body is laced. Every piece of it is laced with neurons, right? There's billions of neurons within these bodies, not just the brain. We think about neurons as what's in the brain. Well, guess how your nervous system works? Neurons. Within your heart, neurons, right? And these neurons are specific types of cells that when a communication is required, well, let's just say communication is required. Okay. Your heart beating, right? There's a communication required between the brain and the heart. However, it's not a one-way path. It's a two-way path. This is where the incoherence of thought, compartmentalizing of brain components, where there's a lot of chaos going on in the mind. As I was mentioning earlier, when we're looking at issues with the mind, we need to understand what it's for. The brain is essentially just an organ like all the others, but it houses the mind. And we can't really cut open a brain cell and see the mind in there, right? So where is it? And why is the brain such an important component? Well, it's neurotransmitters in there that are actually creating circuitry, so that we can have thought more efficiently. So this is where if a person is, I don't know, you've practiced over and over again, thinking kindly, thinking with loving ways, or thinking in ways of servitude to the all, right? Then there's neural pathways, there's neurons that have linked together so that your brain more efficiently processes energetic flow through that neural bundling. Okay. But the neurons don't touch each other, right? These neurons are spaced apart, and the where they couple together is called a synaptic connection, right? And that synaptic connection is like a no man's land kind of, right? Where the two don't actually touch. But the way that one neuron gives information to the other neuron through this synaptic connection is with a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical. It's a cool system, right? If you understand how it works, it's a neurotransmitter. So it's this chemical. So that one neuron has a piece of communication to send, like I'm trying to send Lori a message, right? And so I'm going to send her a message, and I'm one neuron and she's the other one on the other side, right? So I've got this electrical charge that I am electrical charge, and it comes all of a sudden, it halts right there at that synaptic gateway, right? And now I have to convert that electrical charge into a chemistry so I can get it across the channel, float it along that synaptic, or that synaptic canal, to float it over there to Lori. And then Lori gets this little package of chemistry, and then she converts it back into electricity, and boom, shoots it on to her partner, right? What? That's a lot of stuff going on, right? Well, the cool thing about that, it happens at the speed of light. And so all of this information being moved along through these billions of neurons, right? And the way that the information is moved across that canal is with a neurotransmitter created from what? Your gut. It's like, wait a minute. So this is why, don't you think it's important that the gut health, or our understanding around this microbiome, needs to be, we need to know it. We need to learn it. We need to understand it. Because without that neurotransmitter, we're going to get a lot of lack of communication. Okay. Now, granted, you can have a lack of communication by some kind of physical trauma, right? A restriction in nervous pathways. Have you guys ever crossed your legs and your foot fell asleep? Anybody ever done that? Right? Or some limb fell asleep, right? Okay. Well, that's what I'm talking about. That is a restriction in a neural pathway, or not just one, but a bank of neural pathways. Like your entire nervous system in that one area has been compromised, has been compressed, it's been squeezed out. And so the information, those synaptic canals are left empty, or very, very low amounts of neurotransmitters. And so what happens is the information that's trying to be transferred between the limb that's asleep, or perceived as asleep, and the brain's awareness of it, all it is static. It's noise, right? That's why it's tingly. It's like, you ever detuned a radio? You're between stations, it's just in there, right? That's what your brain is receiving, because there's a map in your brain for every part of you. And it's trying to interface with that part of you, but it can't, because you've cut off the circulation. You've snipped the neurons, or I should say you've restricted the neurotransmitters. So now I can't communicate my information to Lori, right? Or when I do communicate to Lori, she's like, I don't know what this means, but I'm going to pass it on, right? And so she passes it on, and it gets to the brain. The brain interprets it like, I don't know what this means either. Static. right? And there's other ways, right, Lori, that those restrictions can happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was sharing with Ken earlier. I was in my late 20s. Back in the day, I call it my past life. I was in the fashion industry. So I spent a lot of time in New York City. And I am out there at the end of the day, hailing a cab, got my arm up in the air, and I'm not going to be the little Wisconsin girl who doesn't know how to do this. I'm getting out there, man. I'm standing in the street. I got this because that's what New Yorkers do, right? So next thing you know, I'm laying underneath the truck. I am not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. The wheels stopped this far from rolling over me, this far. So it literally, the truck, it was in the garment district, and they're not semis, they're not pickups, but they're somewhere in between. And the tail of that thing hit me right here, right here. And okay, so normal people, mature people, would have gone to the hospital and got things checked out. But all I could think of was, I almost died and I'm alive. I am so out of here. So I literally crawled out from under this truck. And the only thing I asked was this, because it was actually what I now understand to be a near-death experience. I remember seeing someone jump up onto the sidebar of the truck and pound on the window. And so when I crawled out from under the truck and asked where that guy was, I was the only one that had seen him.
Wow.
So today I would refer to that as an angel, because having studied angels for 20 plus years, I can tell you this: they cannot intercede on our behalf unless we ask them to. The only exception to that rule is if it's not your time to die, they can stop whatever's going on the earth plane. So apparently it wasn't my time to die, thank God. So rather than going and taking all this information that people wanted to give me, oh, you got to sue these people, blah, 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 blah. You got to go to the hospital. I'm like, I walked a mile to my friend's showroom and I said, John, I think I need a cocktail. I almost died. And
Wow.
yeah, right. So like, I tell you the story to get the magnitude of that's what it was. And in my naivety, I didn't do anything about it. So as time went on, as the years passed, my neck muscles got tighter and tighter, and the pain was like constant. To the point where I could almost ignore it. It was just a kind of a part of my life. And um, and then I started getting depressed. And then as time went on, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and went through the whole process that one goes through, especially 30 years ago, of, going to see a psychologist and then a psychiatrist, and then having them throw whatever drugs they were currently being sold by the drug rep, truth, at me. I was on 6 different drugs in just a couple months, and it was a mess. I was having more problems from the drugs than from the depression. Long story short, I kept praying and praying and asking for help, and I stumbled upon a naturopath. And I mean, literally, I ended up at dinner at her house, and we were talking, and she told me what she did. And she had one of the very first biofeedback devices that were in the United States. And she asked me to come in the next week for a session, and I did. And she literally didn't just work on me. She taught me how to use that biofeedback device. And once she ran the scan, she said, well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I know what's causing your depression. She said, those muscles in your neck are so compressed and tight from that injury that they're compressing the C1 through the C3. So all the neurotransmitters that are getting made in your gut aren't getting up your spinal column into your brain. Now, I never knew that neurotransmitters got made in your gut, but I have now known that for a way longer time than the average person has, because I really haven't heard people talking about this until about 10 years ago, about the neurotransmitters, the gut being the second brain. And those neurotransmitters need to be up and down that spinal column. So she said, we need to loosen the neck to get the neural pathways open, get those neurotransmitters up into your brain. And if you don't get, the bad news is, if you don't get off those meds, you're going to be on dialysis by the time you're 60. So,
Ooh,
yeah. So,
wake up call.
right, total wake up call. And so this ties into my entire healing story, because I always said that biofeedback saved my life, and it did.
Mm.
It really did, because it explained some of what you're sharing with our audience here tonight. It explained all that to me. And then when the Healy came out, I was like, I heard about it from Tony O'Brien, who I know is on this call tonight. And Tony would absolutely tell you this is the truth. She told me about it. I said, it sounds like a QXCI. She didn't know what that was. I said, just trust me, it does. And all I knew was back then it was costing $150 a session for a biofeedback session. And here we had an affordable wearable biofeedback device that at the time you could get for $1,500. I did the math. I went, that's 10 sessions. I said, Tony, can I give you my credit card information? Like in under 5 minutes. It was probably her easiest sale ever.
I love, you know, and this is again what I was just talking about, this restriction that Lori was experiencing, right? Squeezing off the ability to transmit that information. And it doesn't matter where it happens. So if you take a look at this slide right here, you see there's billions of charged messages per second going throughout your entire body. And so, you know, when Lori had this experience and the inflammation and the swelling started to happen around her body, and it was around this pathway, right? And all of a sudden, these billions of charged messages are going, static. And so now you see here, kind of the way in which this works, right? It's like a very cool kind of dance again between the pathways, and then we kind of zoom in and see that there's this sharing of chemical information between these neurons, and then zoom all the way in. You can see that empty space I was just talking about between the neurons, right? This little river across them of synaptic fluid, where that signal, that electrical signal, that charge gets converted to chemistry and then moves across to the next one and branches out and so on. So anytime there's this disruption there, we lose information. Simple as that. Now, as Lori also pointed out, Healy is a device that actually can help enhance and improve electrical charges, right? And the cool thing about that is it can work around the outside of this system, and help improve inflammation issues, you know, reduce inflammation, start working on some of the damage, so that we could start clearing up this pathway, right? Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So there's very distinct benefits to this healthy gut biome. And I want you guys to look at this for a second. And think about this for a second. So the gut biome is, like I said earlier, everything from essentially the esophagus all the way down to the rectum. It's this entire system. And it's also, maybe you've also heard of a system called the enteric nervous system. You've heard of the autonomic nervous system. Anybody? Yeah, the autonomic nervous system. Okay. So there's another one called the enteric nervous system. The enteric nervous system is this right here. It is this entire biome, this gut biome, this intricate cell structure just on the lining of every portion of your digestive tract. All right. It's a communications channel, and it's parallel with the autonomic nervous system. They work together. And they have to, because they help control, or I should say, assist each other. All right. So once we start to balance this microbiome, then digestion improves. Gut bacteria is very responsible, hugely responsible for our immune function, right? It's a big chunk of our immune function. Mental health as well. You can see this cycle of life essentially right here, all encircled around this this system I'm talking about. So I want you to take a look. There's also some things that we can do to help us to improve the health of this inner system. Okay. And so food's a big one. Food's a big one, but it's not, I'm going to give you a little hint, the biggest one. Okay. It's not the biggest one because stress has a tremendous factor above and beyond these other physical systems. So because stress is, I think we got somebody with their mic on. If you guys could mute while you're on here, that'd be great.
Ken, can you unmute? There you go.
There we go.
Everyone else.
Okay. So this stress has a very big part to play. And the I don't know if I want to call it sad. It's kind of sad, but I want one of the real come to Jesus understandings is that we have normalized such a high level of stress that it's really tough for us to even know what's going on, right? Because it just has become, I've heard this term before, maybe you have, it's just who I am. You ever heard that term? Oh, that's just who I am. Maybe you say it. Well, probably nobody here says that. But because I know you guys are probably always, you know, infinite potential, right? But there is a factor that says that, you know, there is a part of my personality that has an ability to downregulate experiences. So the side effect of that is that we've downregulated experiences that are traumatic, and we've built, like, I don't know, cocoons or models around these traumatic experiences so that we're safe from them. And this is what we would call a high level of stress, because your body has to operate on an awareness level at that heightened state of being that built the cocoon. Do you follow me? Make sense? So every time we have some traumatic experience, every time we have some difficult thing that we've overcome, and maybe now this is different. Now, when I say overcome, when we've actually triumphed over something as opposed to overcome something, that's two different states of being. When we triumph, that means that the challenge in front of us, we built a very distinct system within us that it no longer exists as an emotional response. It no longer exists as an emotional response. So in other words, if you're driving down the freeway and somebody flips you off, right? And you have a come apart, and then, you know, you're like, okay, wait a minute, I gotta stop doing that. And you just, you know, you strap your hands to the steering wheel so you can't flip them off, right? That's not managing it. That's not overcoming it. No, that's just building a model of suppression, a band-aid, so that you can't respond in the same way. But to actually come up with an internal understanding that it wasn't against me, right? It wasn't about me. It wasn't my fault, right? All of those things in which we built models as a child. When something happened to us, we made it our fault. We made it about us. We made it something that we couldn't control. So the moment that there's no longer an emotional response around a trigger, now that is actually a model of really overcoming that condition. Okay, so my point here is, folks, that we don't even look at the amount of stress we're under anymore because we just think it's who we are. Um, Part of the design of what I've built in this new business model I've created, Quora Effect, is a way of measuring the autonomic nervous system so that we can give very distinct panels of how the brain is functioning in terms of what its frequency is, how it's compartmentalizing things. In other words, how the different components are functioning together. We can look at the HRV, the heart rate variability. We can take a look at how the neuroelectrical system and the neurochemical system is functioning together, which we're talking about right here, right? So we can take a look at how all these things are being affected in the present moment and get a clear picture. And it doesn't, the picture is not to say that there's something wrong or right. The picture is to get a baseline. The picture is to get an understanding. Like, how many of you guys have a scale in your bathroom or somewhere around you? You can get on the scale and find out how much you weigh, right? I know you're like, oh, curses, curses. It's just giving you information. It's not good or bad unless you make it so, right? It's just information. If you don't like what it says, change what you're doing so it says something different. That's it. That's the thing. It's like, it's just something that's giving you information. So this test that we can do, it just gives us information. Okay. And we can then go out into our lives. We can change some things and read it again. All right.
Wait,
So
wait, back up.
back up.
You forgot something at the bottom that's very important.
Yes.
Antibiotics.
Right. I didn't talk about antibiotics. And I know I skipped over it because it's such a topic of of resistance, especially in the medical community. Um, the word alone should give clue. Antibiotic. In other words, anti-biology, or antibacterial. All right. What are we talking about here, folks? The gut biome is what? How many species of bacteria? 500, right? Of bacteria. And antibiotics are designed to kill bacteria. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I don't know how to sugarcoat it, but that's what they're made to do. And so when we kill off a certain strain of bacteria, it has an influence in us. Of course, there's bad bacteria in there too that we're trying to, because there's some kind of an antibiotic that's prescribed is because of some condition, some symptom. All right. And that symptom is probably accelerated to a point where it's maybe dangerous. Okay. So the problem with antibiotics is they don't discriminate against good and bad. They just kind of knock out a species, and hopefully that knocking out of that species of bacteria was the bacteria that was causing your infection. That's what the hope is, right? And if it's not, what happens? You come back and you get
Another one.
a new prescription, right, for another round. And it's been shown, it's proven, it's science now, it's studied now, because this correlation between antibiotics and depression was noticed. And that's because the antibiotics are killing very specific strains of bacteria, building neurotransmitters that help build dopamine, serotonin, and the good feel-good stuff. Okay. So depression goes up because now we don't have the proper bacteria in our microbiome to regulate those or to produce those feel-good neurotransmitters. And we're struggling. We're struggling. And it doesn't last for just a little bit. It lasts for months, right? It takes a while to rebuild. So
Yeah. Not only that, how many women out there, I know this happened to me back in the day before I understood holistic health and wellness. They'd tell me I had to take an antibiotic, and I would. And after it happened a couple of times, I just looked at my doctor and I went, why don't we just prescribe the medicine for the yeast infection that we know that I'm going to get while I'm taking these? So I get two prescriptions at the same time. So now, flash forward several decades, when I go to the doctor with Gabby, my cockapoo, or one of my other dogs over the years, when they are prescribing an antibiotic, because there are moments in time where we want to just stop that, whatever it is, in its tracks. And then I say, I want you to prescribe for me the best probiotic you can as well, medical grade probiotic. So, and if they don't have any idea, then I just go find one. But so that's the key. If you find yourself in a position where an antibiotic is essential to whatever condition you are involved with, then make sure that you're also taking a super, super good probiotic.
Exactly. So there's foods are out there that help a ton. These foods, the fermented foods is always a really good one. It's just, we need to rebuild. Now, again, as we're talking about things that go on within the woman's body, yeast infections are terrible. They don't just happen in women, by the way. Yeast infection can be in the mouth. It can be in many areas of the body that is, is a controlled environment. Bacteria is a controlled environment. And so when we kill off good bacteria, then the bad ones can flourish. And then there's an abundance. It's not that those bacteria aren't there all the time, right? It's just that they're balanced. And when it gets out of balance because you've killed off certain troops and soldiers and warriors that normally work on combating the bad ones, then you're in trouble. Okay. So we just need to build up the arsenal. All right. So let's go. These the effects here. Let's see. Did I skip one? No. No. Okay. If we're trying to build this balance and we're trying to really assist this dance that I'm talking about, this dance between gut biome and the neurotransmitters, if we're trying to really balance things out, I think it's time that we really become responsible, don't you think? Right? And I know it's like I'll start eating better tomorrow, or I'll work on my my exercise or my movements or things like that another time, or I'll start practicing my mindfulness, when I get back from my vacation. I don't know, whatever it is. It's just not okay anymore, right? Because we can't. I'm going to say it. We can't claim ignorance anymore. Information is too much at our fingertips, and we can really look certain things up, and we can get educated in a very short period of time. And now you're hearing, as Lori said earlier, this gut biome, this whole understanding around neurotransmitters and gut health. It's become a very huge thing because the moment that science discovers some new thing, then research expands its boundaries. The bandwidth widens out. And all of a sudden they're starting seeing that, oh my gosh, antibiotics is adding to this depression factor. And so we might want to look at holistic measures. I highly suggest that we look at holistic measures. And so here's some things to do, right? Avoiding this excessive antibiotic use and really trying to work with your health provider. Okay. Let's think about this. The health provider works for who? Who? The insurance company? No, they work for you. They work for you. And so if we are trying to build a healthier lifestyle and the doc says, hey, I want to put you on antibiotics, say, I want 10 alternatives. I want 10 alternatives to antibiotics, not 10 different antibiotics. I want 10 alternatives to antibiotic medication, right? Put the responsibility back in their lap. You're the expert. Give me some alternatives. Give me some second, third, fourth opinions. Come on, put them to work. You're paying for it. Put them to work, right?
100% can. I actually do that. I mean, my doctor did not know what redox signaling molecules were 7 years ago. She does now. She didn't know that there was a device like a Healy that was a biofeedback device that she could actually recommend to her patients. She thought the only way they could get biofeedback was to buy these, expensive $40,000 devices. And she didn't know what epigenetics was. And I'm explaining it to her in one of my appointments, and she's like, and she gets on the computer and she Googles it, and all this information comes up, and she went, oh my God, I better learn about this. So a year later, I go back to see her, and she goes, I'll have you know, I was at a medical conference just a couple of months ago, and they had a half-day presentation on epigenetics, and I took it because of you. So to your point, Ken, yes, you can challenge them, and you can ask them questions, and you can push the envelope, because bless their souls, they got out of med school a couple of decades ago, and they're not keeping up with all the stuff that all of us are keeping up with.
Yep. Yeah, because we're seeking alternatives, because we're in we're in a world where we've seen the broken, and we might be sick and tired of the broken. Yeah, I mean, I know I am, and I'm not looking at trying to push against or make anything right or wrong. My intention is just to make things that don't work obsolete. That's it. Let's build another model ahead, above, and beyond what hasn't been working. Okay. So avoiding these excess antibiotics. What else? Prioritize your sleep hygiene. Look, hygiene. How many of you guys brush your teeth? How many of you guys wash your face? How many of you guys take a shower? Right? That's hygiene. We call it hygiene, right? But who's placing the sleep protocols as a hygiene? Something you should do on a regular basis. So figure it out. It's like, okay, what do I need? And believe me, when you are engaged in mindful practices, as the last one says, there's stress reduction practices such as meditation, yoga, prayer, grounding. What you need as far as sleep may change. I mean, it alters because your frequency is such a higher state. You're collecting energy from your surroundings. You're collecting energy from the unified field, from the quantum field. Your body is a torus field, right, of magnetic energy pulling in resources, right, as opposed to consuming them in the body. So it's interesting when you start to prioritize your sleep hygiene and you practice some of these other things, such as, local foods, going to the produce section in your store, nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, honestly, a lot of the foods that are in our stores have been there, well, they were picked before they were ripe. Yes. Transported hundreds, if not thousands of miles, and then ripened right there in front of your eyes under certain lighting systems in the store. I'm just saying that if we were to measure, and there, by the way, there are spectral analysis systems where you can actually take a look at nutrient content in a vegetable or a fruit, right? In real time, right there. And it'll show you, how living it truly is. So again, shouldn't you take your power back? Shouldn't you do some diligence? Shouldn't you look for locally sourced, fresh and high nutrient content food? Yes, yes. And I'm not saying just from the vegetable aisle. Lean meats are another thing. I know some people might be vegetarians. That's okay. I'm not telling you how to eat. I'm telling you how to source it. Making sure that our sources are of the highest quality and the highest dense nutrient content. And then, as I mentioned, the stress reduction protocols, folks, I will promise you, if you increased your stress reduction protocol, just this very last one, 10%. Okay. In other words, if you meditate once a week right now, increase it by 10%. All right. If you go to yoga once a week or once a month, increase it by 10%. Any one of these, increase them by 10%. Now, I would like you to increase all of them by 10%, but let's just say you did one by 10%. In 30 days, Okay, remember what I said about the scale? Go in and measure yourself. Just get a reference point. Change one of these by 10%, stay off the scale for 30 days, and go back in there and get on that scale. I guarantee you the needle will reduce. I guarantee you. Why? Because you've just improved every system we're talking about right here. Every system that we're talking about right here. You've reduced the stress. So the amount of energy that is taken away from the ENS system, remember what I said that was? Right? The enteric nervous system, which works the entire gut biome, and the energy given to the autonomic nervous system for stress response, you're taking that amount of energy and moving it over into digest and rest. So that 10% change, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio when you change stress response. It's like a 100-to-1 ratio. So the amount of energy you liberate by down regulating stress is 100-to-1. If we were to measure 1 cup of energy, right, you would get 100 cups of energy given back to you when you down regulate your stress by 10%. It's a huge number. It's not little. Does that make sense? All right.
That's fabulous. And here again, I'm going to challenge you to challenge your grocers. So when you think about shopping locally, ask your grocers, because Whole Foods has not 100% told their vendors that they will not purchase produce that has been coated with a peel. And when I found that out, I went to my locally owned co-op and I asked to talk to the produce manager. And because before I asked to talk to him, I asked like 3 or 4 other of the people in the store who were working in the store what they knew about a peel and whether or not these goods were being sold in the store. Nobody even knew what it was. So I said, we need to talk to the produce manager. He came out and talked to me, and he assured me that they were not going to purchase anything from any manufacturer or farmer or whatever that was using a peel. So if you would like, I'm putting this in the chat, these companies have pledged not to. And if your grocer isn't on the list, have a conversation.
100%. And hey, there is so many easy ways to make a home garden that you can start growing some of your own stuff. And if I was to recommend you grow anything of your own, cucumbers. They're so easy to grow, and there's such a huge advantage to operating within your pH, helping you out there. Cucumbers. I mean, it's like, really any of the like the melon type thing. So squash, zucchini, cucumbers, those are awesome. And then green peppers, those kind of things are amazing to just grow. And you know what? If you've never experienced going out into your own garden, getting a cucumber that's ripe, pop it off, just wipe off the dirt and eat it. Oh my goodness. Ha! It's crazy. It tastes way different than what you've gotten in the store. And there's 2 big reasons for that. Number 1, you grew it. Number 2, your value in it because you grew it, right? It's a whole different thing. If you guys ever want to get your kids to eat their vegetables, have them grow a garden, cultivate the product themselves, right? Harvest it, prepare it, have them cook the meal with you, and then watch them. They will love what they eat. It's a big psychological and heartfelt interaction there. Remember, we're talking about romance here. We're talking about romancing. So that's how you build this love affair for what you're building, what you're creating, what you're growing. So again, back here, if we're looking at trying to improve balance, what happens when it becomes imbalance? What are the markers? Can we see that in ourselves? Right? Can we see that? Yes, we can. It's pretty easy. The body starts to add toxic burden, right? Toxic weight. It's obesity is huge. Diabetes, depression, digestive issues such as irritable bowel, right? Diarrhea, even constipation, by the way, folks, is part of this equation. So, so when we have an imbalance, there's symptoms, there's signs. We can see them. Oftentimes, how many of you guys have ever, you get on the scale and oh crud, I need to knock off about 10 pounds. All right. How do I do it? I'm gonna eat less and exercise more. All right. No, no. Eat better and exercise efficiently. Just eat better. You can eat. I'm telling you, when I work with performance athletes and stuff like that, they don't reduce what they eat. We increase, but we increase it in very, very specific areas of very specific content. So we have good nutrient dense product. Think about the tips I've got down here. One of the biggest plagues we have in our country is sugar. The average human consumes 20 times more than they ever should. And it continues to increase. The country is 100 times more in sugar consumption than 50 years ago. So reduce the sugar. I love honey. How many of you guys love honey? Right? I love honey. And I have some great honey suppliers around here that are local. They have different fields from different types of flowers that the bees pollinate from. And I can have a honey that is from raspberry plants or a honey from alfalfa, and I can tell the difference. Okay, so reduce the sugar intake. If you're going to use sugar or use sweeteners, use something that is natural. Right? I grow my own. I don't have one growing right now. I grow my own stevia plant. You guys ever taken a stevia leaf and chewed on it?
No.
Oh my goodness. It's sweet. It's delicious, right? So you can take stevia and grow your own plant and grow your own sweetener. Or you can have your own beehive and cultivate your own honey. So
Wow.
I'm just saying, my neighbor 2 doors down has beehives, right? And makes his own honey and a garden out back that he has the bees pollinate and brings me over a little sample. But there's bigger suppliers all over my region. But anyway, the point is, look around, you'll find something. Okay. Reduce that high fat food, processed high fat food. I'm not this fat Gestapo. We need fat. We need the good fats, high fatty foods, deep fried foods, things like that. These fats are not okay. And what foods are cooked in, by the way, the oils, when you heat them up, they change their molecular structure and they can be toxic. I don't know if anybody, I know none of you guys do it, but if you know anybody out there that uses those specific types of sprays that you buy over the counter for you coating your pans when you cook in, right? If anybody knows anybody out there that uses that, take it away and get rid of it. Okay. It's toxic. All right. So choose more lean meats, quinoas, beans, nuts, things like that. Okay. All right. Let's cultivate this healthy biome. How do we do that? Well, let's start working these harmonious ways. They're not that tough. We need to take a look at some lifestyle changes. And as Lori mentioned, probiotics, prebiotics. So what's the difference? One is food for the cultures. The other is a culture, right? So we need to feed our microbiome. We need to feed it good food. It can eat. It's not eating really what we're eating, right? It's digesting that food, but find some of these prebiotics that you can feed your bacteria with, right? Take a look. There's good ones out there. And, supplement for that. Garlic, onions, I prefer taking a garlic clove and making my own spices, right? My own seasoning. I prefer that. Doesn't mean I always do it. I prefer it though. But if I do buy a seasoning, I want it to be organic. I want it to be not salted, right? So that it's just the season, just that. I can just put that in there and I can monitor it the way I want. All right. So again, I do advocate for consulting your healthcare providers because we we really do need to partner with them. As Lori said, educate them, educate them. I guarantee you, I've talked to many doctors. Their schooling does not include a dietary plan. It does and if it does, well, it actually does, but it's the standard American diet, the SAD diet. It's sad for a reason. So it does not answer the needs of these human bodies, but yet many physicians are advocating for it. I say, let's educate them, but we need to educate ourselves first, because once we're educated, making an educated decision when a doctor says, no, that's not good for you. Why? Why is it not good for me? Right? Let's talk about why that's true or not true. So anyway, the balanced diet, you guys, I'm not saying to go without, right? I'm not saying to punish yourself without treats. Reward yourself in ways that are mindful. Reward yourself. I love ice cream. I love ice cream. But it's like, okay, well, what if I could get it in a healthier version and I don't do it like, every day? And when we build a model of non-attachment in our mind, then the body conforms to the same philosophy. And we can do a lot more and it not influence or affect the body. So I won't, that will be a conversation that we can have another time if we ever worked closely together personally, teaching everyone how to empower their body through mindful practices and a deeper understanding of the quantum field and that entanglement with the best version of you. Oh, that's where we're headed. So I'm going to stop sharing because that's the end of that presentation. Thank you guys for joining in on that. I know we were a little bit over time. Hopefully it made some sense. If you have questions, of course, I'd be happy to be able to answer those. You're on a mailing list with Lori. She can collect these questions. And if you guys are looking for some detailed answers or something like that, let's work together. Let's find out how you can take charge of your life. And let's find out how you can be responsible for a better way of living. And let's watch that needle of success move. How's that sound? Yeah.
Oh, we're going to be healthier and healthier and healthier. And we'd be remiss, because so many of you have Healies, we'd be remiss not to remind you that you can go into the Heal Advisor search app and put in microbiome, and you will get probably a dozen programs. I think that's what it came up with for me, that you can run to actually send frequencies to help your microbiome be more balanced and healthier as well. So,
very big, important. Remember, there is a program called Friendly Flora. If you guys have not heard of that, it's within the Power of Three page if you don't have it. But there's a program called Friendly Flora. So another word for this microbiome is the flora within this gut. So that's an amazing program for helping to amplify, or I should say, energetically amplify that system. So the digital nutrition protocol within Healy is huge when it comes to nutrient dense signatures, frequencies that our body can understand. Remember, the neurotransmitters in your body, those are the chemicals. The neurons in your body are the pathways. Healy sends electron flow through the pathways, right? So what do you think it's doing when it has to jump across that synaptic connection I talked to you about? An electron flow. It has to convert the signal into chemistry, and the chemistry has to pull from the neurotransmitters. If your gut biome and those neurotransmitters are not available, the Healy is going to have a hard time passing that content. It'll still do it. It'll still amplify you. But you want a better result from everything you do? Here's where you start. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lori, for the platform here to be able to play with this. I know it's a little different than what we've done before, but I'm like, let's really look at this. How about that? Now you
Oh,
guys,
I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. What do you guys think? Wasn't that a great presentation?
simple, not too complicated. I wanted to get really sciencey and complicated, but you know what? I've been told that like I had a friend of mine who says, I am Ken is the documentary and she was the cliff notes, right? I'm like, all right, well, we didn't want to do a documentary here, but we can just build it. Should be a launch point. It should be a launch point to open your awareness. Let's launch. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those of you who are loyal Monday Night Magic attendees, we will post this in the chat. Our next Monday Night Magic, they're always the second Monday of the month, will be November 11th. Woohoo! Can you even believe it? November 11th. That means, wait for it, post-election Monday night. Calmer. We're going to hope for a calmer Monday Night Magic.
Love it.
Yes. So please know how much we love you. Please know that we're here for you. Please let us know if there's topics and things that you'd like us to address, because we're just kind of geeky and we really want to help you.
I love it. Thanks for joining us. I think all of you have a little geek in you. You must love a little geekiness because you're here. Woohoo!
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We love you guys. We'll see you again in 4 weeks. And until then, stay calm, be happy, and know that you are loved.
Mwah. Love you guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Shalom.
Love you. Thank you for being here. Oh, and I love this comment here, Lori. It says that in my experience, my emotional state highly influences. This is from Sharda. Says that it influences my dietary and supplement efforts. And this is what happens. Your emotional state can change your taste buds. Things that you crave. Yeah. Yeah. Operate through love and watch what you crave.
Absolutely. All right. Love you guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.